All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Bounce. This is my reoccurring guest and business partner with Bounce Academy, Andy Behle.
Yep, Andy Behle, another coach on Bounce Academy. I'm 5'10", official 45-inch vertical, and yeah, I came out to Houston to do a dunk sesh because I'm getting ready for a contest. We wanted to shoot some content, so that's what we came to do. Yes,
sir. Yeah. So why don't we get into some hot takes? I mean, we're looking to basically on this podcast, demystify the bounce, and I feel like not everyone has a 45-inch vertical. Not everyone has an elite vertical. So, what are some hot takes that you've noticed for some guys that aren't, reaching their full potential?
We saw it last night. We watched a little bit of the Dunk Talk podcast post, and Donovan was talking about his biggest question is, what was your starting vertical?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with him. What he said was like...
Yeah, what did he say?
What do you mean, what is my starting vertical? Like, people just think I woke up and could already jump a certain height. He's like, well, when I was 6, my starting vertical was like 2 inches. So he's like, does it really have anything to do with my starting vertical, or does it do with the fact that I just jumped a lot for a long time?
Yeah.
And I think that's true. Like, it's like...
Yeah, well, people always try to see exactly like, oh, what did you do? And they just want to copy. Okay, Donovan did X, Y, Z. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, it's like, nah, like, you asked me, like, when we first met, you're like, when did you start jumping and dunking? I was like, I've been jumping my whole, like, there was something in my life that I just loved to jump, so I was jumping, like, as a newborn, or not newborn, as a kid, so, jumping was just something I always did, but I never went and tested my vert.
Or you never, maybe you didn't try to dunk until a certain age.
I didn't really try to dunk until, the rim was there and I was old enough to, want to dunk.
So you could theoretically call it from there, but just only to merely give perspective, not to be like, okay, I started here, did nothing here. There's very few people like that. We coach some people like that they had no sports background, and some people, and maybe that's why people ask that question. But oftentimes I feel like most of the guys with the most elite verts, they were athletic and doing sports their whole life.
Yeah, they're like, how long have you been training for vert? I was like, well, I guess focusing solely on vert, maybe 4 years. Right. But what was I was training 8 years before that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've been training since I was 12, doing Olympic lifts, doing sprints, doing plyometrics, because I was a triple jumper and a football player.
Yeah.
So really, if we get down to it, I've been doing vertical jump training for a long time. I just didn't know it was going to help me dunk.
Yeah.
Until now.
And that's a good point. You just made me think about there's so many aspects to vertical jump training aside from the basics. Everyone, I think at this point, most people, at least they should know, okay, if you do get stronger and you do get better in the weight room, that does translate if you keep jumping. But what people also don't know is there's a coordination factor. There's a lot of other little small things that people don't think about. It's coming from another sport, you already had to practice proprioception, right? Knowing where your body is at and where your foot's going to be at. You've already learned those skills versus someone who never did any sport. They're going to be very uncoordinated. And I've seen some guys who have been training for vertical jump and they actually jump really high, but they still can't quite. I'm not saying I have the most perfect jump form, but theirs is really very not coordinated at all. And it just kind of goes to show that there's more ingredients into the soup of vertical jump than just maybe it's just maybe strength training and
Yeah, I mean, especially hand speed wise.
Hand speed.
I've been able to jump high for a long time, but I was playing football. I did not have no dunk coordination, so
but you got that hand-eye with that ball.
Yeah, so I could catch it, but the only dunks I had in my bag for the longest time was one-hander, two-hander, back scratcher, and windmill.
Right.
Once it got to like going under the leg, going behind the back,
Sure.
that added a whole new realm of challenges. Dunking, like I couldn't do that stuff for the longest time, no matter
Right.
how high I jumped.
Yeah.
I'm talking, even now I still have a hard time with it between the legs, but
Yeah.
it's never been a jump height problem. It's always been more of a hand-eye coordination, which I didn't get because I never played basketball. I just had, I can catch that thing because I played football. And then from there, it's just really just focusing on doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I would say you probably have like maybe a higher baseline in terms of that, and then to your point, there's still a very skill specific acquisition of, right, like getting trick dunks and things like that you do have to just kind of spend time on. I think the main point I'm guessing you and Donovan were trying to make is that, like, look, it's why are you asking this question? Right, what are you trying to ascertain or get to know with this? Like,
I feel like asking a question like that is either trying to downplay what someone's done or trying to make an excuse as to why you can't do it too.
that's true.
Because it's like, oh, well, he started at this age and he could already do this before he ever did anything.
Yeah.
Genetics.
Oh, I get what you're getting at.
No, like, yeah, everyone's got genetics, but no one knows how good their genetics are until they try something.
I'll play devil's advocate on the other side of, like, I do think there's a good amount of folks that do that. But on the other end, like, there's probably some folks who, like, genuinely do want to increase their vert and they honestly have no clue. And they look at someone like you or Donovan as just like, I don't know, like aliens. And like, how the hell is this possible? And I think, and this is kind of what I go back to, I talk about this in, like, with my clients as well, is whatever fitness side of fitness you're on, whether it's vertical jump or bodybuilding or whatever, I think, like, a lot of people, honestly, in life, there's a lot of complex problems and people always want, like, simple solutions. And I think people get not maybe upset, but they're, like, not as satisfied when they hear an answer like what you gave or what Donovan gave, because it's like, well, jumping high can be really complex and it's not always just one answer or like a black and white thing. Oh, well, at this age I did this, and then this age I did this, and then that equals this. You're like, okay, yeah, that equaled that in his circumstance. And it may not have just equaled that. Like you said, it probably was a bunch of years of doing sports, and sure, maybe genetics plays some role, but then also, like, Donovan gets shit done. Like, he trains hard, he trains consistently. To me, that's more of a variable than your genetics. Because as we've been talking about a lot, like, we know a decent amount of dudes, you probably know more, that have, like, good genetics. It don't mean jack.
It doesn't really matter. Like, there's people who definitely have, like,
they may have a
super good baseline. Like,
right,
they've been able to dunk pretty naturally just by playing basketball, or they've been able to even, like, do pro level contests just because they're, like, tall and they're athletic and they've been able to do it their whole lives. But then you realize, like, they can't keep that up if they're not doing training for recovery or for getting stronger or for getting more powerful or anything like that, because eventually they get hurt like everyone else does. Like, wear and tear, you get hurt. And then now what? Now it's like, man, I used to be able to just do this. It's like, well, now you gotta, like, figure out that you can't no more. Like you went your whole life doing it, now you gotta find a new way. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like, a lot of my stuff was natural, but, like, I was in the weight room, powerlifting, going crazy. Yeah,
it's like you can't just chalk your stuff up to natural. You were putting in a lot of work.
But then I hurt my back.
Right.
And now I gotta warm up.
Well, now you have to, and then you had to lock in on, like, really understanding how your body works, how just all the muscles work, how, like, your spine works, how compression works, how all those things. So you kind of leveled up as, like, an athlete in a way in terms of, like, your knowledge.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, blessing and a curse, for sure. Yeah.
That's one thing. Like, natural guys will say, like, you have to do this, this, and this, but then they get hurt and you don't see them for a long time.
Yeah.
Because that's the difference between, like, being good at the sport and actually knowing what you're talking about. I feel like I still sometimes don't know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm good at the sport, but because of that injury, I'm starting to know what I'm talking about.
Well, I think you know a good amount, by the way, in my opinion. Obviously, we're both always continuing to learn. I've been very adjacent to dunking in the performance world for a long time, but I only myself have really dived deep in the last 3 years. So obviously, there's no way I can't that I'll know everything. But I kind of just thought of something like what you were saying. I think there's levels to this, and I think for the casual. The casual is just going to see a guy dunk and be like, that's crazy. But obviously to you, you're like, okay, well, in perspective, don't get me wrong, for the general population, dunking is crazy. But there's levels to it. So if the ceiling is like an Isaiah and a Donovan at a 50, dunking isn't that necessarily that crazy. And so like, especially with these guys. And so I think a lot of people get mesmerized by it, but they don't understand that like, no, man, like, sure, they maybe will be able to do that, but they're so far away from their own potential. And that's usually because of like, you know, either the lack of knowledge or like what we're saying, like the lack of like actually just like hard work and consistent work.
Yeah, it's like we talked about this with like other things outside of this, is like people like the idea of things.
Yep.
It's like, so you like the idea of you being one of the best dunkers in the world, but you don't realize that all the best dunkers in the world didn't just become the best dunker in the world. They had to do a whole bunch of stuff to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, what was the reason I started jumping in the first place? It was not to be a pro dunker. It's literally because I like to jump. I was training for triple jump. It was too cold to go outside. I started dunking. I was like, whoa, this is fun as shit. Like trying to dunk. And then I dunked. I was like, that's fun. Then it was a fun thing. And then when things get fun, you keep doing it. And then when you keep doing something fun, you want to get good at it. And then you want to compete. And then you want to be the best.
Yeah.
So it's like, remember why you do something. Like if you don't actually enjoy it, then you're not going to do it, you know?
Yeah, and there's, I think that is really important, and maybe like the motivation behind it, but you can't take away the work ethic and the discipline that, you know, going to dunk camp, meeting all the pro dunkers, getting to know them on a closer level, like everyone's putting in work, you know, every single day, you know, whether it's like doing therapeutic stuff or like making sure your diet's on point or trying to get enough rest or whatever. It's a daily thing that people are constantly working on, and you can tell that's the separator between, you know, someone who naturally maybe has like a 38 and can maybe get to a 40, but to your point, a few things, they'll probably never reach their potential, and they'll probably never even stay healthy enough to even sustain whatever they got.
Yeah.
Because it just, you know, there's levels to it. And I guess the whole point what we're trying to say is like that is way more important than your genetics. Like it's just a silly topic because it's like you can't control it. It's outside of your control, but what can you control? And when you look at like the best athletes and the, you know, world-class Olympians, sure, there is some genetic factor in there. Yeah, there definitely is a good genetic factor in there, but all of them have put in the work, and you'll never know how far you can get if you do put in that work. And like you said, you do have to enjoy it and kind of low-key be obsessed with it, because, you know, your results aren't normal. You know, like getting up to a 45, I would say like in the mid 40s and upwards. All right, you've probably now put in some work, unless you're a complete freak, but there is a level of work and effort that probably had to have been put in there, and so you still can't get around that either way.
Yeah, and the journey is never gonna be like the way you want it. Like it's
Sure.
you can't plan that stuff out, because like
Yeah.
we're not like machines. Like we're gonna get hurt. Like when I was at my peak at 19, like I was jumping maybe 42, 43. I was jumping way better time-wise. I could jump longer. I can maybe hit the same dunks. But what I can do now is I might have to warm up longer, but I'm going to jump higher. I'm going to hit those dunks in less tries. And like that's way better in comparison. Like if I only jump 15 times and I hit East Bay 8 out of those 15, and back then I could jump for 2 hours and rip out 10 East Bays, but it took me out of like 100, who's the better dunker in that scenario?
Yeah.
And that's what you got to realize is like, just because you get injuries, just because you have to take maybe time off to focus on one part of your body that's getting a tweak, doesn't mean you're not going to end up where you want to be. It just might not be the way you want to look.
Yeah, I mean, it's as cliche as it is, like, progress really is never linear. And it looks like that a lot on social media. But I would say probably for anyone, if they really laid it out in like a long form, like how we're doing, you'll see that it's not. Like, what about if Andy just didn't post, like if you didn't post about your back issues and you just went MIA and nobody knew, and then you came back and we're doing, no one would have theoretically ever known.
You know what they would have thought probably?
Well, oh, you just got on
PEDs.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's like, no, I broke my back.
Yeah.
I had to take a year, almost
Right.
2, to actually like get to where I could jump relatively without any pain, and I'm back. But I posted the whole process on YouTube. But yeah, it's like, if I would have went MIA and then came back out of nowhere and like hit a East Bay,
It's
like
it still looks like this. It looked like, okay, he was hitting East Bay, just went MIA for a while, and then hit an East Bay again. And it's like, well, actually, it was like,
yeah, it's
you
like
know,
I was here and then boom, and bing, 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 bing.
Yeah,
bing,
yeah,
bing.
yeah.
And it's just like been like, it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, almost is what it feels like for me. Or now,
Yeah.
lately, it's been like 3 or 4 steps forward, maybe 1 or 2 steps back every couple months, because you know you can't. If you have back issues, a flare up every now and then, it's a little inevitable when you're pushing hard.
do you wanna? This could be a good segue into like the topic of like mental toughness. I know this is really cliche, but I think it is a really important factor for a lot of people who wanna. Regardless if you're trying to be a professional athlete, if you're just trying to be exceptional at something, yeah, what's your thoughts on the importance of like mental toughness or grit?
Grit. For me, it almost became like not being tough anymore. Like when I hurt my back,
Or I guess, how do you define mental toughness and grit, I guess?
just detaching your like self-worth from your athletic ability? Because like when you are invested in something and you don't perform the way you want at it, why does that hurt you so much? Like you're still you're still a person. Like for me, like if I have a bad dunk session now because of everything I've been to, like I don't think of it as like, damn, I had a bad dunk session, I suck,
Yeah.
I'm depressed. I think of it as like, I couldn't jump a year ago, I can jump now. I just had a bad day because I'm training hard. It'll be all right.
I do like that a lot, because how I define it is like your ability to kind of overcome obstacles. And I feel like how you framed it is like, well, what about if you don't even look at them as obstacles?
Yeah.
Which I really like,
I almost look at it as like
just part of it.
part of it. It's reps.
Yeah.
Like there's no way you're gonna jump your best every single day. And like you're definitely not gonna jump your best very often if you're completely fixated on
Yeah.
that one bad sesh, and then the next one's bad, and then the next one's bad, and then you're spiraling, and your self-worth is bad. It's like, dude, I go do my dunk sesh. Once I'm done with my dunk sesh, I go live my life, you know?
Yeah, it's unnecessary pressure that you're putting on yourself, yeah.
I go train really hard. I'm super invested in that, and then I go live my life. Like
Yeah.
my life and my life in that are two separate things. Like, you know, you don't bring your work home.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think that's a very healthy way to look at things, and I think a lot of guys, that is a super unique perspective, I would say. I don't think most people would have thought that way, but I totally get where you're coming from. I think that allows you to have quote unquote mental toughness and grit, but just because you
Or like-
don't put that extra.
Stoicism in a way, like
Yeah.
just like detaching myself. Like, of course I'm be upset if I jump bad, but like
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? It already happened. Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let this affect the rest of my month? Like,
Yeah.
Like, no. If you do that, then you're losing to yourself. And it's like, why? Like, why fixate on like one bad sesh? Like, I don't know. Like, it could be so much worse. Maybe that's why. It's because I got hurt. So my
Yeah.
whole thing is like, it could be so much worse. I could not be jumping.
Yeah.
I could not be able to bend over. I could not be able to walk without feeling a pinch in my back.
So how important would you say, I guess, like kind of thinking in that type of way, is for like a determinant of like success for like a lot of like athletes or people just kind of like pursuing their own athletic endeavors?
You just gotta
Like, would you say that's, I guess, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like the most important thing, 1 being like, no, you don't need it?
Don't need what again?
Like on a scale of like how important do you think of it as like a determinant for like success of an athlete or anyone trying to pursue athletic endeavors, of 10 being the most important thing that they need and 1 being like, nah, you don't really need to have that type of approach?
I think it depends on the person, what you've been through for sure. Maybe like a 6 or 7, but like you can just like see, like you can see me that I've been jumping probably the best I've ever jumped in my life, and it's because I don't care when I jump bad.
Yeah.
Because there's just, when you're training hard, there's going to be cycles where it's so specific that your body just feels like it's jumping 5 times a week, so you jump like shit when you finally do.
Yeah.
You can see that in Isaiah. Like Isaiah will go through these months of intense training where he's not jumping very well. He's having fun. He's making it fun. He'll hoop maybe. He'll get his jumps in.
But let's say someone does the opposite of everything what y'all are doing, right?
Like they let it get to them?
Yep.
I mean, it's okay. I think it depends. I think competitive nature is good, but like...
See, like I would rate it really high, to be honest. I think that is really, really important. And that's like a really big distinguishing factor in between like someone, I'm not going to say like the elite and not elite, but I'm just going to say it's someone being like the best version of themselves. Because I guess my take is coming from people really obsess about genetics. And for me, there's a few other factors that are way more important in reaching your genetic ceiling. And it's almost not even physical. It's like being able to, how do you deal with obstacles? And I think you do a really good job of it, obviously. People like Isaiah do, and I'm sure Jordan does, and a lot of like the top athletes, they can be more, I think, like what you're saying, stoic about it. They can be more objective about it.
I think maybe earlier in your journey, it's okay to be upset and get angry. And try harder. I think once you reach a certain level, like you can still have fun even when you're not jumping your best.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's not even more like it's almost like more like a privilege. Like I almost think of it like it's like something I love and I get to like do it, you know, because I couldn't. And so for me, it's just like like, it's almost romantic in a weird way. It's like I genuinely have this privilege to jump.
Yeah.
And some people genuinely can't jump. And I was at a point where I genuinely could barely walk very well. Like, so to me, it's like I'm just happy and thankful that even if I'm jumping on a bad day, I'm still jumping.
I think Isaiah had a very similar lens on it. You know, Isaiah probably doesn't talk about his personal life that much, but, you know, he does have someone in his family that, you know, doesn't have like the most able-bodied privileges that we do. And so I think Isaiah kind of is cut from the same cloth as that. Like, I think I'm not going to speak for him, but from what it sounds like is that he just feels like it's just a privilege in general as well. And I think like, you know, just to be able to jump and you know, be athletic and do the things that he loves. Because, you know, like you said, not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people are able-bodied. Maybe you're very injured or you're just actually disabled. But I really do think that, like, the ability or the knack of however y'all put it in your perspective, but y'all still do figure out how to get around obstacles. And I think in my opinion, the sooner that you could figure that out, the easier it's going to be. And I think the closer you'll get to like your true potential. It doesn't have to, it can be like a gratitude kind of way of like what you're saying, or it could just be a way of like, just like literally not letting it, detaching your self-worth from it, right? And making it easy. But it's like whatever you got to do, there are going to be obstacles and you are going to have to figure out a way around it.
Yeah, what my grandpa used to tell me this saying, I say it all the time. It's like, he's like, what happened when Icarus fell from the sky? And I'm like, I don't know, like he died, I guess. And then he's like, people kept going to work. People kept plowing the fields. Like
that is very stoic.
Like life might stop for you, but like it just stops for you. Like like we're doing our thing. There's some dude down there probably pissed off at the gas station. Like life is happening.
Oh yeah.
Whether we are living or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about that. Like, you want to be with the best, but you're choosing to get this pissed and get this down on one day
Yeah.
that they're not, and they're getting better
Yeah.
while you're complaining.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think what you're saying is true. Like, you know, especially everybody has emotions. So I think, like, how I understand what you're saying is, like, you know, it's okay to have those emotions and be upset and whatever. But it's another thing to, like, really start to let that dictate, like, your next plan of action and, like, straying away from the course, or, like, you know, affecting it from you not doing basically what you need to be doing, which is
It's like facts
Yeah.
versus feeling. It's just like a
Yeah.
relationship. Like yeah, they can hurt my feelings, or I can have a bad day at work, and my emotions, I can't control that. I'm upset.
Yeah.
But what I can control is how I act when I go home.
Sure, yeah, with your
My
significant
boss
other,
tells
yeah.
me I'm a dumbass. Dang, that hurts my feelings. I'm not gonna go home and be like, man, fuck you. You know, I'm gonna be like,
Yeah,
hey, baby, how's your day? You need me to go do this? You need me to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that? Like, don't take it personal. Like,
Yeah.
they probably didn't go wake up in the morning thinking that I'm gonna call this guy a dumbass today to make him feel bad.
yeah,
You know, like when you really get down to the root of worrying about that so much, it's almost like a selfish thing that you do.
yeah. Like, it's like, yeah, I agree with. I totally get what you're saying. Like, the world isn't like, oh, why is this me? It's like, it's not happening to you. It's just like life is just like happening. And it's like, you know, maybe I had a bad day at a workout, or like maybe I got really, like, you know, obviously I didn't have as much of a big injury as you did, but like when I had sprained my ankle, I was like out for 3 months. It was a very bad ankle sprain. But the whole time, people were like, oh, maybe you shouldn't do dunking. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you're doing this. Maybe you're doing that. And then I was just very objectively like, oh, like, it was a freak thing. I jumped up. Someone came under me. I landed very high. It's a very bad ankle sprain, and I need crutches, and it sucks. But this will pass. I will get better. What can I control? Okay, I can control my rehab. All right, I'm gonna just try to get better every single day.
You can't control your emotions, or you can't control your feelings, but you can control your actions.
Your reaction to exactly. You can control your actions and your reaction to whatever happened, and I mean, and then look what ended up happening. Like, I still went to dunk camp. That's how I met you, bro. If I had like got in my feelings about it, and I had sprained my ankle like right before the first dunk camp 2023, and we literally wouldn't have never met. I wouldn't have met Nick, who became my first vertical jump athlete. I wouldn't have never met like all the pros, and I feel like, you know, I have a relationship like that with like you know, like Jay Clark and Isaiah, where, you know, I can talk to them and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, amazing things happen when I think, you know, you can obviously feel your feelings, but, you know, try to remain objective about it and not let it stray you away from, you know, like, you know, the things that you should be doing.
Another hot take I was thinking
Yeah.
of, me and a couple guys when we were in Las Vegas for the Dunkademics, as we're talking about it, I think my hot take is the dunk community needs to be more competitive.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because like there's aspects of the dunk community that I think are great, and we should be like wholesome and like supportive. But then there's some aspects where it's like, why aren't we going at each other? Like,
Yeah.
like if you have dunk goals to be a pro dunker, we should be competing. We should have contests. Like, I'm not saying we should do like WWE, like talk shit.
Yeah.
And like it's all filmed and we're like talking shit on YouTube and then we go dunk against each other. Like, no, like it's almost like we're doing a contest,
Yeah.
but it's wholesome. Like, why?
I think because like I'm thinking because like not every dunker maybe comes from like exactly like a hooping background, and like hoopers are very, very like, you know, basketball culture is way different than dunk culture. I think there's some elements that you could use in dunk culture, like you saying, like the competitive nature. But then the positives is that everyone's still like, you know, a decent person to each other. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna just like trash you, and then like,
that's stupid. But like, like once I wanna, like, it's cool. I wanna be someone's friend, but like in the same aspect, if we're going against each other in a dunk contest, I want them to try their best to beat me, just like I'm gonna try my best to beat them.
Yeah.
And like that's this whole other thing. And then once we're done with the contest, whoever wins wins.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, it's nothing personal.
It's almost like it's hard to be competitive when one, there's no contest. Yeah. And two, when there is, it's just like, oh, like you can go first. Like this is cool. This is like, that's no, hilarious. Bro. Like, who's going first? So I know what dunk I got to do for my first dunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think for me personally, growing up in Texas where we played football and we would try to get to state, and we would go. I do track and I would get to state. Like, that's super individualized, especially track, just like dunking. And you don't make friends. Like, you can be cool with someone, but it's competition day. Like, I'm not here to be friends. Like, let's lock in for this 45 minutes and then let's like hang out after.
And I think like even on a bigger picture lens, like competition breeds like just better performance across the board. So it's like, I think competition is always great. Like remember when we went to the gym the other day and I was like, hey man, I got 60 pounds. How much, you know, do you think I can hit this for 10 reps? And you're like, nah, I think you could do it for like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or whatever. And then I asked your roommate. And so I was like, I'm trying to create some sort of like healthy because I know I don't want to hit that for 10. Like, why would I do that? But I need some sort of incentive. So I think competition, it can still be friendly and not like really personal, but I think you're right. Like, I'm assuming just because the dunking as a sport, even though it's not official, but like it's still so early on in its stages that it probably needs something like that. But I think that's a good take.
Yeah, and like for my old like thing, it's like, so I feel like the cool thing about a contest is it really can put things into perspective. Like we were talking about, there's like a difference between a session dunker versus a contest dunker. There's a difference between someone who hits really crazy technical dunks and someone who hits nasty power dunks. We put them in a contest.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be objective who wins, like that they're better. But this is how we're going to, like, who's really better if no one's going against each other. We're just posting. Then it's just subjective. And then there's no way to actually have real competition and make it a real, like, growing sport.
Why don't you, because some people may not know the difference between kind of like what you were saying. Like, what is the difference between like an elite dunker versus like a dunk sesh dunker?
So I would call myself a dunk sesh dunker at the moment.
Or like a contest dunker, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Versus like a contest dunker. So a contest dunker would be like a pro. So they're gonna have their 6 dunks, and no matter whether it's their best day or their worst day, they can hit all those dunks in 1 to 3 tries in any environment. Versus a session dunker, they might be able to hit all those dunks. They're not hitting it first try, they're not hitting it second try. They're probably going for 1 dunk that whole session, they hit it, and then they post that 1 make, which is something I do. But like, I'm trying to get to a point where I can go to a contest, I can hit every dunk I pick 8 out of 10 times, no matter the environment. Yeah. And I'm getting close, like my between the legs and my cuff mill and low-key that 360 pump is pretty much already there for contest ready. And then it's just, I need to add more dunks that are consistent. But like, the difference between, to me, someone who's like, so when I went to Las Vegas, I like compared myself to Donovan, not in the aspect of like, I want to be better or as good as him. I just want to see where I'm at.
In terms of
skill-wise, consistently versus him. He does not miss very often. And if he does, it's because he's trying something new or he's warming up. I miss because I just miss. It's not a height issue. It's not even sometimes a hand speed issue. It's literally just bad technique, or I completely miss the rim. And the difference between an elite guy and a non-elite guy is the elite guy's gonna make it.
You want to touch on? I'm kind of curious because it was something that I noticed in your session. Because we had a session yesterday where you're kind of prepping for your dunk contest in Utah. I noticed it was kind of like I mean, as cheesy as it is kind of sometimes just locking in sometimes and a mental focus. Because oftentimes I would ask you, what was the difference between this dunk and this dunk, or this miss and your make? And it was just like maybe you made some slight adjustment, but yeah, like you want to elaborate or touch on like that and how that may be is that potentially a differentiator between like like session dunkers or casual dunkers versus like guys who actually
Yeah, so like when I'm in a
professional?
session, if I'm just doing a session and I'm not prepping for a dunk contest, I'm not necessarily focused on locking in and just making it. I'm focused on I need to jump high so I can dunk it hard. So I don't care if I miss if I jump high and missed hard, but I'm gonna be mad at a make if I just get it in. Now a dunk contest, it's like, what can I do to make this make as easy as possible? And so the first few attempts are like, I'm jumping from farther away, I'm jumping higher, I'm missing because I'm just trying to go all power. I was like, okay, I will get to my third attempt on some of the dunks. I'll be like, so what are you gonna do? I was like, I'm gonna move a half step in. I'm gonna control my run up a little bit, but I'm gonna make sure my last two steps are fast. I'm gonna make sure my hand's on top of the ball when I go to dunk.
Yeah.
And that literally changed it. Like I missed my first display. I was like, all right, half step in, jump hard, swing ball up, keep my hand on top of the ball, and then it's on me to finish the dunk. The finish is like the hardest and the easiest part. Like if you're up there, it should be easy, but mentally,
Yeah.
if you don't think you can do it, you're not gonna do it. So like once I get up there, it's
Yeah.
like it's just up to me to put it in, and that's what
Yeah.
I did. So yeah, it's just making minor adjustments. I would say if you get to a contest, if you go to a contest, you have to have some sort of like, you just gotta lock in.
To me, what that sounds like is also two things. Is locking in. Yeah, people always say lock in, but you're like, what does that mean? To me, what that means is like being very present, right? Because when you're like, I gotta make sure I get my hand on top of the ball. To me, that sounds like when you're jumping and when you do that versus when you're not doing that, you're very present and you're there. You're like, boop, like, and so I think that's like
When I focus like that,
being very present in the
I
moment.
almost
Yeah.
feel like when I see the rim and I see my hand, it's almost like pinpointing it.
Yeah.
And so it's so much different than a regular session, because in a regular session, I'm focused more on the jump.
Yeah.
It's like, but if you are contest ready, which I think I am, and most guys who are contest ready, it should never be a bounce issue.
Yeah.
It's always going to be your technique and your finish.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's like what we're saying, being very present. And when I say being present, it's like you almost have to be present throughout the entire movement, right? Not just at toe off, but sure, there's your run up, but being present through the whole entire thing. Because I think, again, obviously I'm not, jumping like you're jumping, but I'm assuming that sometimes you miss, and that it is what it is. But I think sometimes, it could just be possibly like, just your mind is like kind of like somewhere else, and it's like instead of making a very big effort of like kind of like the things you're talking about. And I think like there's that, and then I would assume it's also like just getting into a flow state.
Yeah. If you ever notice,
kinda hand in
when
hand,
I
yeah.
jump, there's no like you don't see me like pondering before I go to take off. Like some people, I feel like, especially when I was doing it earlier, just thinking so much about all the things around it. It's like, dude, to me, locking in is making it simple. It's like,
Just being present.
be present.
Yeah.
Like, why are you hesitating in your run up? If you hesitate, you're not going to go fast enough. You're
Yeah.
not going to jump high enough. You're not going to hit the dunk anyways.
Think less, basically.
So think a little less. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be fast. I think fast, jump, dunk.
Yeah.
That's all that goes through my brain.
That's actually really good cues, though, right? Because then once you jump, it's like dunk is just this. Get hand on top, just literally. Because sometimes what happens for me is like I may think fast, and then like maybe I don't jump. Like I jump obviously, but I'm not jumping hard, and then I'm not even thinking about finishing. But yeah, like you said, Yeah, it's just kind of like simplifying it sometimes. And then also just, probably just finding however you can get into flow state.
A bird doesn't think about flying when it flies.
It just flies.
It just flies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's so simple. It's stupid ass shit, but like literally it's as simple as like, if you spend all this time thinking, you're gonna spend way less time jumping.
Oh yeah.
So if anything, like a lot of things, especially if you're new in your journey, is just jumping, and a lot of things will fix itself once you learn a little bit.
Yeah.
You're learning that, I jump a little bit too forward if I bring way too much speed at the very beginning, so I'm gonna build up my speed into my penultimate. And then you start doing that, and that becomes natural. You don't have to think about that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I notice if I swing my arms like to my side, I don't get as much arm swing, so I'm gonna try to kick them really far back. Then you start doing that, and then eventually it becomes instinctual. You're not
because then you start. Well, this is obviously I coach people. I coach people in person. Yeah, it's like when I'm coaching someone, I'm giving them all their cues, and they are probably screwing up in a lot of different ways. But at the end, I always say like, hey, once I teach them all the cues, now you just look for a feeling, which is kind of what you're talking about. It will become instinctual. You'll just know the feeling. It's a sensation. Like I can teach you how to RDL, right? Hey, I need you to push your hips back. I need you to keep your spine straight. I need you to like keep your lats tight. But over time, now I'm like, okay, don't think about those cues anymore. Remember this? Yeah, just feel it. Remember that sensation?
You know you're doing it right if back don't hurt.
Yeah, right.
Or it's brace, and you just feel a big old. That's what I feel literally in my hamstring. Like,
what feels like a good? I guess this would be an interesting topic, but like, so going off of that, what feels like a good jump? Like, what's the sensation that you get when it's like a good jump versus like maybe a very subpar jump? Like that you did it right.
It's always been if there's no stutter, and like genuinely the fastest pop at the penultimate, like it literally feels like that pop. It literally feels like I just like med ball slam some shit into the ground, and then like my arm swing goes up, and then like my whole bottom half feels weightless.
And then when it doesn't feel good, like what does that sensation feel like, or like, yeah, how does that feel?
It'll feel more like slow first, but then like almost like I feel it more muscularly. Like it doesn't.
It's not like a
It doesn't feel naturally like I just sprung up. It literally feels like I'm using my quads, my glutes, and my arms to actually like lift myself in the air. And like that feels only good if like I'm doing a drop step, because that makes sense. There's not as big of an approach.
Yeah, there's like a lot. You got to be a lot more tense.
But it almost feels like I'm like doing this like
you're fighting momentum versus like using momentum. Yeah, on the penultimate.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like I'm like throwing myself in a half squat and then like lifting myself in the air if I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. And
that's only if I'm warming up and I just haven't gotten to a full approach yet.
I have noticed that like when I'm warming up, like I'll try to force it and tense up, and then when I don't do that and I just kind of focus on the speed, and then it's kind of weird. I almost like relax, but I just try to hit like that really fast penultimate, but almost relax, because like sometimes if I tense up too much, then you actually end up slowing down.
Now certain dunks, I will say there's different feelings. Like for ETB, like my penultimate feels, or behind the back, my penultimate feels even more sudden.
Maybe because you have to be very vertical.
Yeah, it's like I just have to like open some sort of like level of more aggression.
Okay, like you're going a little less into your, maybe because you're anticipating.
I back up my approach one.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going way faster. My penultimate is way longer, but because it's way longer, like my back foot just gets into the penultimate really quick. Yeah. And like my spring is like almost straight up. Like my between the legs looks so much different than my windmill, because like I'll jump from the same spot, but I know I'm windmilling and I can do it easier. So like it's almost like I'm just like drifting at the rim, versus like a BTB is like a Yeah. But I don't know, it's all like I almost don't even know like how to explain the feeling sometimes. Like, yeah. To me, all I think is like if I feel this, then I know I'm getting up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I think that is really important, which essentially it is like it's the aggression. Like anytime in doubt when I'm just like not doing well, I'm like, all right, I need to like be more aggressive. And that kind of usually is the case of like what ends up helping me out. Even when I'm having like quote unquote bad jump days, I think like yeah, just making sure you're staying aggressive because at the end of the day, like jumping and sprinting, I always think of those as like very violent movements. Like they're not supernatural. Like most of your day is really like really relaxed probably. You're not doing something so sudden and so violent. That's why I like power cleans a lot because like you can't fudge it. Like if you did not come with enough intent, you're not gonna get it up.
Yeah, you're not gonna catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's so funny. Like we dunked yesterday, and like once I was done dunking, like you can ask him. I just like shut. Like I was like, all right, I'm gonna go walk.
Like yeah, you just turn, yeah.
And then like after that, like I ate a shit ton, and I didn't do shit but relax.
Yeah, because like, it takes so much out of you if you do it right.
Yeah, if you do it right, it should be like the most intense thing you do.
It should be, yeah.
Like it's not supposed to like you're like, oh, like I don't feel. If you are someone who's not feeling like they're jumping higher, and I ask you how your jump system is, like, oh, like I don't really feel like tired or sore after.
You should be.
Like, yeah. Are you jumping? Are you actually jumping?
You should be physically spent. Like really exhausted. I mean, I'm kind of riding a little bit of a high because I'm like usually on caffeine, but like once that wears off,
genuinely,
yeah, my body is like, what did you just do to us? Obviously, you should play it smart and know your limits. We've obviously trained a long time to where our bodies can take this. Like I jumped for a long time yesterday, but I'm fine right now. But
yeah. What's another hot take?
Yeah, we can do one more hot take.
I'm trying to think.
We did kind of the mental aspects of it. We did a little bit of the dunk world. What about just in training or anything you've seen in like coaching so far? We've only coached I think a few months together now. But like what have you noticed coaching our athletes or prospective people who are interested in dunking? Yeah, what's like a theme that you've noticed?
I can talk about my coaching experience so far. It's really hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's do that.
Low key. So
yeah,
I'm just starting to realize that not a lot of people had the same like personality as me,
or drive.
So like, we try to get guys, and they're like, we look for ambassadors. So we see people with a lot of potential. We want to coach them, like literally for free, in hopes that they will like post for us and
market for us.
But like we're still coaching them, and we're getting them to a level that they aren't at yet.
Yeah.
And you would think that they'd be down because one, it helps us social media wise, it helps them social media wise, and it kind of helps everyone in a
everyone win-win. Yeah, it's a win-win.
Everyone gets monetized basically by doing that.
Yeah. And, they get referral bonuses, blah blah blah.
Yeah, things like that, and like it's like the idea. It's like we always is like people like the idea of things. Yeah. People say a lot of things, but people don't actually do a lot of things.
I think you're probably just learning more. What I've learned a lot in coaching is just almost psychology, and I've just learned a lot more about human nature, and I feel like that's probably what you're learning about as well.
Man, like we've talked about these things. Like we talk about how we want to become pros, how we want to compete with the best, how we want to jump as high as we possibly can, how we want to make a living becoming a professional athlete. But then when you get that chance,
call them up the next day and see how they feel about it again.
Yeah, you call them up and it's like, all right, bro, like
that was pillow talk.
And it's like, what do you got going on? It's like, what do you have going on? It's like, we're trying to get something going for you. That's one thing that's been hard. And then training wise, I just realized that like sometimes like it's really hard to make sure people are doing all the right things programming wise.
Yeah.
But it's really nice when we get those guys that like
the buy-in is high.
Like,
and they execute well.
Yeah. I think me and you always talk about Tevin, bro.
Yeah, Tevin.
Tevin is the perfect client. Low key, like
he even had an injury and just like, all right, I'm gonna be a trooper and just figure it out, go through it.
Do the recovery.
He could have easily been like, oh my god, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. I'm quitting.
over one little like tiny flare up.
Yeah, he had like a
stuck
quad
with us,
strain, I
and
think.
like 2-3 weeks later, he's back to jumping, and he's jumping just as high. And like, he's like one of those guys. It's really hard to find guys that are honest. It's really hard to find guys that
Yeah, his communication is very, clear.
Yeah.
And concise. Yeah,
He's honest, and he asks questions like
he does. Yeah,
not like questions like he's not questioning us necessarily.
just
He's like
curiosity.
He's like, hey, like, how come we're doing this on this day, and how come we're doing that on that day? It's like, that makes sense. Like, or he'll like ask like, hey, I got this going on. Can we maybe set this up a certain way so I can still get it in?
Yeah,
Like, he's not running from the work, even if the work is hard, because he puts the RPEs for the day to us, and they're almost always like above a 7.
yeah, and
he still
that's
does-
how I know. That's how I know, because if you're a client of ours and you put like, I don't know, because you can basically on our old app, because we're gonna have our new app, but on our old app you can like rate the intensity of the workout. If it's like a 2 out of 10 or 3, like,
And it's like a leg day or something.
yeah, it's like a and if the day says high intensity leg day, like, all right.
Yeah. And then coaching world wise. Oh, I'm about to have my first in-person client.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be having an in-person client, and I think that's a really exciting thing. I've never really done in person. So
It's very rewarding, I will say.
yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more rewarding, and I think I'll learn a lot from it. Like, just because we're online and there's certain things that we're not actually able to do doesn't mean that the things I'm able to do and learn from in person I can't apply.
I think I learned, I started in person, and I think I take a lot of, because I've literally taught someone how to squat or do an RDL like so many times over, I've seen like, oh wow, like these are all the issues that I commonly deal with. So I already know in an online client, like what they're probably going to encounter. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that helps a lot, actually. And so it's going to help in programming. It's going to help in cues, and it's going to help, like, if someone doesn't know how to do a specific exercise, like helping them troubleshoot, like figure out, like, okay, how can they get better in the technique? It's like, yeah, I've coached someone how to do this so many times, and these are the cues that that has worked in the past. Yeah.
Oh, and I have a contest
Yeah.
February 17th in Utah for $1,000 and a free ticket to Dunk Camp, which is good because right now I'm not technically able to go because I went and did the dunk session in Las Vegas. So I want to win the 1,000 because that's money. I want to win because I want to win. I'm a winner. I want to be a winner. And then 2, I want to go to Dunk Camp still and hang out with the homies.
Oh yeah. No, that'll be.
And I want to win that contest. I want to compete. I always want to win. I don't like showing up to things to lose. I don't think anyone should do that. I don't think you should compete if you think you're gonna lose either.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah. If you want to get trained by us, go to bounceacademy.com or thebounceacademy.com. If you're not sure, like, still put in your stats. You can literally schedule a consult with us. We'll talk to you. We look just like this, even on a computer screen.
Yep.
So, yeah, you do a consult, we have many different packages, and I would say do the Freak because it's super hands-on. And who knows, if you're in Austin area, I do in-person sessions. So.
Yeah. And if you're in Houston, I do in-person sessions. And we're still offering like a discount for all of our like new members because the app still technically hasn't launched yet. We may still do some discounts once the app is launched, but we for sure still are doing discounts before it gets launched. So
usually it's only on the Freak package, which is the biggest package.
Yeah.
So it's a discounted rate on the best package. So it's 24/7 access to us, bi-weekly calls, your nutrition.
And they're private calls, so it's just between us on our elite package, which is a lot more cost effective or a little bit more budget friendly. They're more group calls, so you won't get that like kind of like one-on-one time with Andy and I. We also aren't really going to look into your nutrition at all if that's something that you would like. We're just going to like assume that you're doing what you need to be doing, which I will tell you, hint, hint, most people are not.
Yeah, I was not.
They're either like not eating enough, or maybe they're just like not eating eating like the best foods.
My issue was literally I was eating all the right foods, but not enough.
Not enough, yeah. And
Usually when you eat healthy, it's not very calorie dense, especially if it's a lot of protein.
yeah,
So
and that's something I struggle with.
carbs.
And that's something I struggle with myself. But I've had to make a very, very big effort. Like Andy was on, yesterday. I was like, all right, like let's eat some ice cream before we go to sleep.
Yeah.
Not saying we ate a big tub of ice cream, but it's like we burn so many calories. Like we were there for hours jumping, and then Andy even got in a game afterwards, and then we go on like walks throughout the day. Like we are constantly moving, burning energy, and like food is fuel. And I think a lot of people, sorry, like side tangent here, but like a lot of people really don't view food as fuel. They view like, oh, let me eat the least amount possible and then go train or go do whatever I need to do. Whereas I think my philosophy is I want all of my athletes and all my clients to eat as much as they possibly can while still maintaining like a good body and healthy body composition. It should be the opposite. You should be trying to eat as much as you can.
I don't think you have to necessarily eat like perfectly clean either. Like I do personally just because I like it. But
Sure.
like you said, like we had an ice cream sandwich. That's not necessarily, most people would deem that junk food.
So that ice cream sandwich was 150 calories. If I know I'm having around 3,000 calories. I mean, we could do the math. That is such a small percentage. When we say 80-20, it's like, yeah, for real. Not even. I bet you it's not even 80-20 for me. It's probably 90-10. And so, but yeah, like it depends for different strokes for different folks, obviously, but I really am in that big philosophy of like you want to make sure you are eating as much as you can, because it's going to really help on, what about if there is a time that, Andy, you need a cut? If you're already eating damn near nothing and you wanted to cut some weight or whatever, like what are you going to go from there? Same thing for anybody. So, so we'll teach you all of our philosophies. We're going to be putting recipes up there, guides, a lot of resources, guides. So super excited for all that to come. Definitely should be launching in the next few weeks. So cool.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Bounce Academy out and behind the bounce out. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's get it.
Let's do it. All right. That was good.